Bitcoin's a quarter of the way through the Saturday session. Bitcoin right now, again, continues to hold at this horizontal support level right here. We're up slightly. The price of Bitcoin is up about 0.2% at the moment. We'll see how we close by the end of the weekend, and we're going to have a close on Sunday for the weekly bar. Continuing to watch this horizontal support level in the 50-period moving average. If we lose this area, then there's risk of the 100-day being tested and of this trend line right here, or coming back all the way down to the March peak over here at 73,700 and some change, which again is just below those levels, the 100 period and the trend line. If we bounce right here, then we're watching to see, do we get some traction back up and try to clear overhead resistance? We've had a reaction off of it. So far, we've dropped 15% and found support at the 50 and horizontal support. The divergences did play out. We talked about that, and when we had the divergences play out, we slammed right into the peak here, slammed right into the trend lines that I've been talking about in the weekly time frame. I'll be watching if we continue to sell off or consolidate at support. Do we begin to become oversold here and start to recycle back up, or does that take us beyond this level and with a bigger sell-off? We'll be watching to see how it unfolds. Light trading volume, we have the new week now here. Going into the new week, we have New Year's. A very light trading volume here. Now, again, we're up about 0.2% right now, almost 0.25% at the moment. For the Saturday session, on Friday, we were down 1.59%. On Thursday, we had dropped by 3.71%. We saw this 15% sell-off. We got the gravestone doji, we got the confirmation, we got the follow-through, and with the follow-through, we took out the 20-period moving average. With the confirmation, we took out the 10. We came all the way down to the 50, and we bounced. And then we bounced out the 50, and we tried to rally back up to that 20, came back down to the 50 again, and then now rallying back up to the 50. Rally back up to the 20. Right there is the blue line, the 20. Rally back up, bouncing out the 50 again. Rally back up to the 20 as the 10, the red line, crossed below the 20-period moving average. So far, we're getting rejection at that 20-period moving average. Horizontal support continues to hold. Right here, it was resistance. Now that has become support, and we continue to bounce off of this area over and over again. So we're watching to see, does this area break and we get a bigger dump, or do we bounce off this area and attempt a recovery to try to come back up and test this level? Again, a little channel now here has developed, and again, we have the possibility of a head and shoulders, but here a little channel has formed, and again, we broke down from that channel and we back tested it at the 20-period moving average. So again, does that give us a bigger dump, or are we consolidating sideways that again could be setting up for a push, another push higher for maybe a 3 drives to a high, where we have a 3 drives to a high as a 1, a 2, and then maybe a 3, or possibly a head and shoulders if we get a reversal here. Maybe this is the right shoulder, or maybe it's still under construction and we get something like that, and then we go down. So we'll be watching to see how it unfolds. But right now, signals in the daily time frame are bearish. Signals in the weekly time frame are still bullish, and we're trying to bounce off our 50-period moving average. If we can't get the traction with those lows, and we come back and now that we're taking out the 50 again, we can't get the traction with those lows that formed at the 50 at horizontal support, then the risk is we take it out. So we'll be watching to see how that unfolds. But again, we've got the 10 below the 20. If the 10 crosses the 50 and the 20 crosses the 50, could see a bigger dump. If prices dump down, we could see a bearish realignment of those moving averages. Now, in addition to being a possible head and shoulders pattern, also a broadening formation here, right angled and ascending, the upper boundary ascending, right angled and ascending, possible broadening formation. If we don't further develop a better looking right shoulder, I mean, maybe it's a right shoulder and it's just a a sorry excuse for a right shoulder, but could be better defined and further consolidation here. So we'll be watching, but a broadening formation is also in place. So broadening formation, potentially a bearish pattern. Head and shoulders, potentially a bearish pattern. 3 drives to a high could resume the advance. Again, that may be all she wrote, and we just get the 15% sell-off. Attempt a recovery to try to flip daily signals back to bullish. And Bitcoin turned off some very important trend lines. This is our trend line going back to 2017, the peak there before the bear market. This is a linear scaling. You connect that to the two 2021 peaks, excluding the shadow here, including the shadow here, and it's pointing up to right where we hit, and we turned down off of that level. We still may try to rise back above it if we can clear the trend line. We can go to the upper boundary of the channel in the weekly time frame with our log scaling. So we're watching that, but right now, again, I warned you before the sell-off ever happened that we were going up and slamming up into this level. We talked about it before we ever hit it. We talked about the upper channel line. We talked about the 2020 trend line on the log scaling before we ever reached it. Talked about these trend lines, reaching them and possibly getting a reaction. That's now what's happening. But the question now is, will we be able to eventually clear these levels or get a bigger sell-off and then clear them, try to go higher? And if we do go higher, we can go up to the 120, 125,000 area. Weekly chart here at the linear scaling, turning off that 2017 trend line. For the week, we're down 0.76% after our drop of the previous week, down 8.93%. So we had that drop, and remember, we've dropped 15% from the high there, and then we've bounced off horizontal support. But this is the trend line right here. We've been talking about this trend line from the 2021 low to the 2022 lows, excluding the shadows, and that pointed up right where we came to right here. If we can clear that level right above this area, you have the upper channel line again from this lower boundary, and again that would take us towards 120,000. I told you that if we reached it immediately, it would be 115,000 or just under 115. The trend line is potentially the target, not a number. And again, this trend line we did reach. I told you if we reached this trend line, it'd be on the low end if we reached it immediately, which we did not do, 105, 106,000. If we took our time reaching it, then you're looking at 108, 109,000, which we did do. We did reach 108,000. Turned off of this trend line, and the other one I just showed you. So again, if we could eventually get above that, you can ultimately see Bitcoin move to this upper channel line. And depending on when we come into contact with that, well, we didn't reach this level to hit 115,000, so it could reach closer to 120 to 125,000. So the trend lines that we've turned down off of. You have our 10 and 20-week moving average of support. If we get a bigger sell-off, again, you can back test this trend line. You can go to horizontal support, as I mentioned, on the daily chart there at 73,700. So if support does break, then we get a bigger sell-off. We'll be watching to see if the support levels will hold or not, or do we end up getting that bigger sell-off. Now, again, my signals in the daily time frame have been consistently bullish besides a few minor pullbacks. They've been consistently bullish, and then we broke out and we cleared that 77,000 area, which was extremely bullish. After a successful breakout and back test, the breakout and back test flipped our signals to bullish in the weekly time frame. My signals remain bullish. They've been consistently bullish here in the daily time frame, but now they're turning back to bearish. So there's risk of a bigger sell-off if the signals remain bearish. The low at 49,000, we got a higher low at 52,000. Signals turn back into positive territory. And again, it was validated by oscillators. Oscillators went back into positive territory and remained positive, even though we pulled back. Remember, this is when we pull back to the 100 period moving average and we bounced, but we pulled back to support levels, and here, like with the cloud, remained in the bullish portion of the cloud, and we went higher. And now with this Reversal at the trend lines of resistance, we've come down and 15% rally back up, but then are failing here. So we're now in the bearish portion of the cloud, and it's being validated going here negative right there into the negative region. So if that remains negative and we remain in the negative portion of the cloud, we break horizontal support, the risk is that we get a bigger dump. If we can bounce or consolidate here, then again, if signals in the daily time frame can revert back to bullish, getting back into the bullish portion of the cloud here, getting back into positive territory with the oscillator, then we can resume the advance. But so far, we've had a 15% sell-off, a failed rally back up, and signals still bearish here. And right here on Bitcoin, again, the daily chart, again, we have seen signals consistently bullish since 52,000. We got signals turning back to bullish with momentum, and then we saw trend signals. Had some signals warn us of pullbacks. The trend has been consistently bullish, eventually led to the breakout. Signals are back to bearish, but here, getting back above the red line right here, okay, and then it was validated with the price oscillator going into positive territory. Price oscillator has remained in positive territory, consistently in positive territory, like I've been talking about with the RSI. And now the RSI has gone negative. Well, the price oscillator is starting to go negative. So is the MACD. So the risk is that we get a bigger dump if we take out horizontal support, as I've been talking about. You take out horizontal support and you go deeper into negative territory and remain there with the MACD and the price oscillator and the RSI. Those things remain negative. Then you could get a bigger dump back to the 100 or back to the 200 period moving average. But right now, support is still holding, and even though we're below the 50, the green line there, support is still holding. But the momentum and the trend is turned bearish. We're in the lower portion of the cloud right here. We're not in the green portion of the cloud. We're in the red portion, and we've lost the support line right here. We broke down, dropping 15%, bounced off the 50, went back and tested it, and got rejection there. So the risk is that we get a bigger drop, and if we do, watch the 100 period moving average. If we don't, if we bounce here, then we got to see everything flip back to bullish. So the question now, and I'll bring this up close so you can see, the question now is, are we going to drop and go deep into negative territory here and get a bigger dump down to one of the moving averages, or like I said, the trend lines we looked at in this video? We try to resume the advance. In order to do that, you got to clear this area right here, which is at the 99,500 area. That's where we have stalled out at, the 99,500 area. You've got to get back above it if we're going to resume the advance. We broke down, we back tested this area. Again, right now we're holding above horizontal support and flirting here again more with the 50 period moving average. The risk is that we break down. So we'll be watching. The risk is that we have this little miniature head and shoulders with kind of a sloppy right shoulder and that we break down. So we'll be watching to see, do we get a bigger dump or do we recover? Do we recover off of horizontal support and here around the center line with the price oscillator? Please support the channel with the link directly below. That allows me to be able to provide you this information. If you like the charts, you like the indicators, please let me know that by supporting the channel today. Just follow the link. It'll take you to a secured site and you can donate any amount you want. I thank you for your consideration for that. With things going bearish here into the lower portion of the cloud and signals, momentum, and trend signals turning bearish on Bitcoin, and these divergences playing out, it's telling us that we're either going sideways or we're going down. So signals have to revert back to bullish. You got to get back above 99,500 here to revert things back to bullish. You got to bounce off the 50, get back above the resistance trend lines that we turned off of in the weekly time frame to resume the advance. If we don't, the risk is we get a bigger sell-off. Now, I've talked to you about this chart here quite a bit with the RSI in the daily time frame and the MACD. We broke the trend line here on the RSI, and we saw the 15% sell-off back to test a 50-period moving average. We broke the trend line, and then we dropped below 50, tried to get back up and back test the trend line, tried to get above 50, turned right back down. As long as we hold below 50, could get a bigger drop if we take up this trend line right here. So we'll be watching. And again, the trend line back over here, the blue trend line, the 100 period. I've drawn a accelerated trend line here with the log scaling. And again, so just some trend lines I'm looking at right here. And then again, if the RSI can get back above 50, that would be positive. It's got to get back above 50, stay there. If it remains below it, we could get a bigger sell-off if we take out this horizontal support right here. So still hovering around that 50, but we're below the 50 right now after trying to bounce off of it. Our MACD had the diversions, and right now we're seeing the MACD come down to the center line. The MACD gets a solid push into negative territory, and it's right there at it right now, right at that center line. You get a solid push, you can get a bigger drop and break this area of support. If we see this level hold, then I'll be watching, do we see the MACD try to recycle back up? Maybe go a little bit deeper into negative territory, but then try to recycle back up. So we'll be watching, does it go negative or does it firm up around the center line? And that will really determine if we get a bigger sell-off or not, if that MACD goes negative. But the negative divergences I warned you about before we got the sell-off did play out. We had these negative divergences as we slammed up into those trend lines on the log and linear weekly charts. And we talked about that at great length and detail, and I warned you about the sell-off before it happened. But again, whether it's going to be a bigger sell-off really depends on if support right here, this horizontal support, is taken out or not. If signals remain bearish, remember, the weekly signals are bullish, the daily signals are bearish. So again, if the bulls want to resume the advance, they got to flip the daily signals back to bullish. Bears regain control, the weekly signals will eventually turn back to bearish and will do more technical damage and eventually take out the 100 period moving average. Bitcoin follows the 100 period moving average. Now, the Bitcoin trend is flipping back to bearish. We saw it try to turn back to bullish with the rally, and then it failed. So the Bitcoin trend is turning back to bearish, and we remain in a risk-off environment. So there is risk of a bigger drop. The risk line remains bearish. Risk-off is in play, and the bullish trend tried to change to a bullish trend. That has now failed at the moment. So again, it means we're either going sideways or down now at this point. So we'll be watching horizontal support. You take out that 91, 92,000 area, then you're going to get a bigger drop with Bitcoin. Bitcoin remains in a risk-off environment. And again, Bitcoin has done technical damage. At that support, we've had a 15% sell-off. If we break it, we go down even further. And again, not much in way of support on through here, but down over here into the 72, 73,000 area, you've got some key support. This area over here, and then again, the peak from 2020, March of 2024, previous all-time high. Right here, so far, signal's still bearish. That's going to change if we're going to resume the advance. If we don't, and we break horizontal support, then we could get a much bigger drop. The question is, do we have a reversal on our hands with a top, or is it just a bigger pullback? Or right now, if support holds, it could just be a mild pullback. Cloud has remained bullish up until this 15% sell-off. Now the cloud, it turned bearish, tried to turn back up. It failed, and then tried again, and it failed again. And so again, currently we're seeing a red cloud form here. And again, after we had the higher low at 52,000, We went back and we tested that low at 49,000. We had that higher low at 52,000. We saw the cloud flip back to bullish, and it's been consistently bullish up until now. So again, we'll see, does it remain bullish and we end up getting a bigger drop, or can it correct sideways and horizontal support hold and revert back to bullish? The oscillator is now going negative. So if we do take out horizontal support, there is risk of a bigger drop. Remember, Bitcoin is trying to bounce off of this horizontal support level. We have really this 3-tier horizontal support area right here. And that's also in line with our VWAP support from the breakout point right here, which gave us the breakout and the back test of the trend line right here. That VWAP support right now is coming from that low right there. So that's where we're at. Again, if we break the horizontal support and you take out this first tier of support right here, then again, you can get a bigger drop. There's not much in the way of support. We have these VWAP support levels from different lows. But if we lose this area, the risk is we go down to that 100-period moving average that I've been showing you in the videos. And this support down here could come into play down here at 70,000 or just below into the high 60,000 range. And again, that's if we take out support. So we'll be watching support closely. The risk is you get a bigger dump. So far, the VWAP support is holding, and this horizontal 3-tier support level so far is holding up. Now again, daily signals are bearish. We've seen the cloud flip back to red right here. Again, the 10 and 20 have gotten a bearish cross. The risk is we get a bigger sell-off and drop below horizontal support, remain below the 50-period moving average. As we've seen the cloud go bearish, and we rallied back up to the 20, bouncing off the 50, we've seen the momentum signals go negative, in many cases having the divergence play out. As long as signals remain bearish, we can get a bigger drop, again, to the 100 or the 200-period moving average. If it can revert back to a bullish signal, then again, you got to flip the cloud back to bullish, get back above that 10 and 20 period moving average. And remember, weekly signals are still bullish. The bulls are still in control in the weekly time frame. Even though the daily signals turn bearish, the bulls are still in control in the weekly time frame. Now, if we get a bigger sell-off, we'll see if the weekly signals still remain bullish. We take out support. 91, 92,000 area on horizontal support in the daily time frame. We have sold off by 15%. Horizontal support is still holding, but the momentum line is still bearish at this point. Tried to turn things around right here with the arrow, but it flipped right back to bearish. And again, the momentum line remained bearish here, and the balance of power remains negative. So again, signals remain bearish in the daily time frame. We saw the divergences play out on indicators all over the place. We saw it on the RSI, we saw it here with momentum, we saw it on the MACD here in the daily time frame. This divergences played out. It's given us a sell-off. Again, we tried to see a rebound. We saw briefly the impulse line turn back to bullish. The momentum line never did, but then it reverted right back to bearish. And we have red bars reflecting the trend. We have the red ribbon, we have the red cloud, we have the red background, and we've got momentum in negative territory. Possible divergence or confirmation of a higher low could set up, but again, in order to turn things around, you got to get momentum turning back up and going bullish. If we take out horizontal support, shot at a divergence, but it could be we could just get a bigger drop, making our way down to the 100 period moving average. This line represents the short-term trend. We've dropped below it now. Again, we lose horizontal support, there's risk of a bigger drop. And then if we get a bigger drop or Even with this drop right here, the question now is did we peak at those trend lines or can we clear them? It's all about support and resistance. I still think we'll move to the upper channel line as I've talked about. Could see that happen in January. You got a pretty good shot that's going to be the case, but then I think you'll probably see a freak out based on inflation. I think inflation is going to end up ticking higher. We're already seeing it with the PPI. I've been predicting those eventually happen. I think it will happen. I think that's what the bond market is telling us. Go watch my latest stock video. I'll link it at the end of this video and talk about that. Could see an inflation freak out. Actually, that could cause the stock market to top. If the stock market starts dropping, and so does Bitcoin, then the Fed will panic and they'll stop worrying about inflation. If we start seeing a pretty dramatic drop in the stock market, continued deterioration in the labor market and weakness in the economy, then they panic and start doing an emergency cut. We'll see at some point, in all likelihood, in the first or second quarter, because I believe a recession will show up in the first or second quarter. And again, I talk about more recession indicators in the video. I'll link at the end of this video, my stock channel.